Hello, hello. It is definitely the day that Mercury is stationing retrograde on my ascendant degree because I have been trying to get this video done, and one thing has led to another, from the garden service coming to mow the lawn to the bog, to me being able to not speak clearly, to the dog barking, not the bog darking, really ridiculously, and all number of crazy things. And now Zoom was doing some strange update. So let's see how we do getting through this particular new moon in Leo forecast. This new moon is quite an exciting one. It does have Mercury retrograde during it, and there are definitely some things I want to touch in on. But I also feel really, really called to give a nod, because today is the day that I'm filming this, not the day of the new moon. The day that I'm filming this is the 18th of July, and this is Nelson Mandela, or as he's fondly known in South Africa, Madiba's birthday. And I mean, we celebrate Madiba Day every year. I know his birthday. I think most South Africans know his birthday. It also happens to be a good friend of mine's birthday, and she's also a wonderful person. So great day to be born. But what surprised me on Monday when I was filming my card reading for the week, this is now Friday of that same week, was this metaphor regarding Mandela coming through. And then during the course of the reading, realizing I didn't just have a metaphor jump into my head, that he was now a guide working with me. It was only after that that I realized, oh, it's his birthday on Friday. And many synchronistic events occurring since then. So at least during this Mercury retrograde stationing on his birthday, he's had a sense of humor in my ear. Also, did you know that charts are impacted posthumously? So that is also an interesting thing. And I have actually got his chart here because I thought it quite interesting to show you. Wait, let me go on to Mandela's chart. Okay, this is the new moon chart. Give me a second. Here is Madiba's chart, and I just want you to notice that he has Mercury at 16 degrees of Leo and Saturn at 15 degrees of Leo. You can see them here in the chart. And Mercury is today at 15 degrees of Leo, stationing retrograde. So it's so fascinating to me that he's come through as a guide, as he is having basically his Mercury almost, not quite, but almost perfect return. And it's stationing on his Saturn degree. And that conjunction between Mercury and Saturn is quite pronounced in his ninth house, which is also the house of spirituality. So I guess and kind of like outside of the bounds in some way realm, so that it would be easier for him to come through. Not a guide I was expecting, so very flattered to have Nelson Mandela coming through. But just thought it was really, really interesting that he has this so strongly in his chart on the day of his birthday, in which Mercury is stationing retrograde, because not every one of your birthdays you're going to have Mercury back where he was. It is a solar return. The sun returns to the point that you were born, either the day of your birthday or the day on either side of it sometimes. But very interestingly, that it's also a Mercury return and Mercury stationing retrograde. And that happens to be 15 degrees of Leo, which is a world point. It is the midpoint between the equinoxes and the solstice points. So it is, if you did the Wheel of Eight holidays, like if you add Samhain and Beltane and Lughnasadh, then this is when the sun hits 15 degrees of Leo. The sun is not yet at 15 degrees of Leo. I'm just pointing out, when the sun hits 15 degrees of Leo or any of the fixed signs, those are world points. And often people with that are seen on the world stage. And so he has Saturn on that actual degree and Mercury right next to it. And he was very well known. Saturn, discipline, he actually got more famous as he got older. Saturn is that way. And this is just a tiny, I don't want to get too far into this because obviously we're here for the new moon in Leo. I just found this fascinating. And also, Mercury is how we think, and how and it impacts our speech. And his voice is known across the globe. So I just thought, especially as he got older. So I thought that was really interesting. And I just wanted to point that out and just give a little nod to my new guide from the side, who has such a wonderful sense of humor. Okay, let's get back to the Leo new moon. So, this Leo new moon is happening at 2 degrees of Leo. So, very early in the beginning of Leo. The sun has just entered a couple of days before, and as the moon enters, she meets up with him. And as I said, Mercury is retrograde because the date of this is the 24th. Let me double check that. Okay, 24th of July. I've set this up for South Africa. So for us, it's going to be happening at 9 p.m. at night, 9:10, but GMT will be 7:10 in the evening. So also just a reminder that because I've set this up for South Africa, for Port Alfred, where I live, it is a Pisces rising chart. That probably won't be the case for you unless you live in South Africa, then it will be a Pisces rising chart. But if you don't live in South Africa, you can always redo it on your own to put in your own coordinates. Or otherwise, the more important thing I feel, because I feel like most people who are following my astrology readings are newer to astrology. So it's more important to have your own chart and to look at, do you have anything around the early degrees of the fixed signs? Obviously, because the new moon is at Leo and Leo is a fixed sign, but you could look at all the fixed signs, which would be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And as you can see, this very strong opposition between this new moon, sun and moon are always together at new moon, and Pluto. So that's going to be an intense feeling. There's going to be a breakdown of power. Like the energy of Leo is the sovereign, or the figurehead, or the person who can get on the stage and give that speech, or whatever the case may be. And then Aquarius is more like the background, the people in the wings helping the president or the king or the queen or whatever to be that figurehead. But obviously we need somebody to be the spokesperson, and Leo is good at that. Aquarius doesn't really like to be the spokesperson if they can help it visibly. They don't mind writing the speeches, for example. But Aquarius is very much about power to the people, not power to just the sovereign, for example. And so if you had a good sovereign who really was doing good things, the Aquarian side of that would be pretty happy with that. And so here you're going to look at where that is in you. Where are you standing sort of sovereign in yourself, being very authentic, being very self-accountable, but in a good way, not in a way that harms other people intentionally, and in a way that is designed for the greater good. Because a good sovereign or political leader or head of a home, I mean, literally, we don't have to make this the biggest role in the world, which a very, very small proportion of people have. And we're using this metaphorically, but a good leader or ruler is going to listen to the people that they're looking after. And ultimately, the goal is to make everything run smoothly for everyone, not just the person at the top of the pile, the top of the pack. And when we had 16 years of Pluto in Capricorn, we were breaking down a lot of top-down power. So now that Pluto's in Aquarius, we're looking at how do we actually all be shoulder to shoulder, eyeball to eyeball, rather than this top-down power structure. But that doesn't mean that we sometimes don't need somebody to be a spokesperson. But it might be that you and I are equal partners in this, but you are a better spokesperson than I am. So, but I maybe am better with words than you are. So how about I write your speech, but you say the speech, because you won't get tongue-tied and you won't get stage fright. And so instead of it's this dynamic of we are all the kings or queens of ourselves. But if we're all kings and queens, we don't have a hierarchy where anyone is higher than or better than or whatever. And so this is an interesting dynamic that's at play here. And I'm just trying to think if this is the first new moon in Leo with with Pluto in Aquarius. I can't remember if we had one last year. Sorry, I'm having tea. Anyway, this opposition is strong, and bearing in mind that Leo season for the foreseeable future, for the next 20 years, is going to be opposite Pluto, because once the sun is traveling through Leo, it's going to be impacted by Pluto by sign opposite. But that doesn't mean that every single new moon, in fact, we may not get such a close new moon as we're having now. Well, I don't know. I haven't looked back, so don't quote me on that. I mean, I haven't looked forward to all the subsequent new moons for the next 20 years, or full moons for the next 20 years. But this is very tight. This is a very tight thing. So it's very much coming to show us that dynamic that I was just talking into. And it is a theme that is going to continue for 20 years. So pay attention to where it is that you feel out of alignment, where you feel people are trying to overpower you and being domineering, and where you are doing that to others equally so, because you can feel into both sides of that chart. Now, if you're somebody with strong Aquarius, you might much more identify with the Aquarius side of the chart, or strong Leo, you might much more identify with the Leo side of the chart, and yet you will have both places in your chart. Okay. Mercury being retrograde by this point at 13 degrees and 15 minutes is also going to add to the reflective nature, because Mercury is our thinking planet. So if he's in that sign of the sovereign, and he's like, well, how have I been doing this leading thing? How have I been confident? How have I been insecure? Because in order to be in charge of yourself, you actually have to be pretty clear on who you are. And you have to recognize the traits in yourself that you don't really want to keep cultivating. The stories, because Mercury is also like the narrative, the internal narrative, the stories that you keep telling that you no longer want to keep telling. And these are the things, when Mercury retrogrades there, you're going to start saying, well, I don't know why I've been so identified with being the person who gets stage fright all the time. Because actually, if I'm sitting with a group of friends, I have no problem talking. So why am I so scared of that? And can I overcome this to be the next best version of myself? Not that any version that went before is bad, but we're continually growing and evolving. And so even though retrogrades get a bit of a bad rap, I like them, because I feel like, first of all, Mercury's a whizzy, zippy little planet. And he's often moving so fast that we don't have time to be reflective and retrospective. And when he retrogrades, he gives us that opportunity. Yes, that it is still true that sometimes your words are getting tongue-tied in your mouth, or your travel plans have a delay, or all those things that are associated with Mercury retrograde. If you're going to sign a contract, read it 3 times, kind of thing. All of that is also true, but not necessarily bad. It just means check your travel plans, or if you don't have to travel during Mercury retrograde, just wait until it's not retrograde. There's all these ways, but also don't stop your life because Mercury is retrograde. I mean, last year, in a Mercury retrograde and an eclipse season with a total eclipse, I traveled to the UK. And I mean, if I could have chosen dates differently, maybe I would have. But this was when it worked out in terms of my children's holidays, in terms of my sister's maternity leave. Like this is when I had to travel. So I didn't stop my life and go, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this amazing adventure to go and see my sister and spend time with her family because Mercury is retrograde. That would be ludicrous. Just like last week during the it's last week for me now, but by the new moon, it will be 2 weeks prior. In the full moon, I had to have a tooth extraction. And full moon is like the worst time to have surgical procedures. But I needed this tooth that I had an abscess, and I needed to get it out. So I again made the choice. This is healthier for me to get this out sooner and let the healing start happening. And maybe there could be more bleeding, or maybe there will be slight more chance of this, but I'm going to do all the things that I can in my toolbox to take care of myself to hopefully prevent that. But I'm trusting that it's better for me to get it out sooner than later. So with astrology, the reason this is coming up now is just to say, these things are brilliant guidelines and frameworks, but they shouldn't stop you from making decisions that need to be made. Okay. And Mercury retrograde is one that I think people sometimes can get a bit silly about. I'm sorry, I wasn't going to have my tea ready for this recording, but then all those things happened. So I made a cup of tea, and now I have it. Okay, so the strong challenge here is this tug of war with Pluto, Mercury retrograde, and then we also have Venus at 22 degrees of Gemini, squaring off with Mars at almost 22 degrees, in fact, of Virgo. So those are both mutable signs. neither of them are at their very best in either of these signs. In fact, these are both Mercury ruled signs, which means Mercury, who's currently retrograde and he's having like a little slowdown and a little wobble, like, oh, I don't know why I've always been saying that or doing that. And he's busy having this like reflection while he has Venus in his one house and Mars in his other. And, you know, maybe you can imagine he's got a bunch of his places Airbnb'd, and they've booked into these places and they can't really get his attention because his email is down and I don't know, these analogies just come to me. But yeah, his email is down and Venus is worried that, you know, on her side that she's feeling a little dysregulated in Gemini because, you know, there's a bit of too much clutter there for her liking. And Virgo is worried that he's supposed to be sorting out all the details of this place and he can't get hold. I'm Virgo, Mars in Virgo. It can't get hold of Mercury because he's gone AWOL. He's gone, you know, he's gone dark. And so it's a little bit disruptive as well. And again, probably because these are both Mercury ruled signs and Mercury can very much associate with our nervous systems, it might be an opportunity to look at where you dysregulate and how you dysregulate and how you can amend that. So the way that I would often describe the difference between these two Mercury ruled signs is that Gemini is more the nervous system and Virgo is more the digestive system. Gemini is air. So it's a little, I'm grounded up here and then, oh, I'm so tense and anxious and like a butterfly, this thing to that thing until I'm feeling frazzled and frayed and I don't know how to downregulate and I don't know how to sit still. This jittery, anxious sort of vibe. Virgo tends to look more composed, but inside they've got the butterflies in the stomach and they're also in their heads because Mercury is out thinking in their heads going, I wonder if I did this right. They can be quite perfectionistic and quite critical of themselves and others. This is why there's a great discernment in them. They make great editors and even accountants. But there is this like nervous tension that you don't see. Virgos look a lot more put together. It's an earth sign, mutable earth sign. So they look grounded and composed and probably are more grounded, I would say, than Gemini. But inside, it's all in the belly. So you might look at those two places. How is my digestion and how is my nervous system? Where are either of those systems, body systems, feeling dysregulated? And can I, because Mercury is retrograde, can I reflect on why that is? Like, what has dysregulated me? Where is this anxiety coming from? And what can I do about it? I hear a car outside and I'm hoping that's not a delivery. Anyway, Mercury is retrograde today, stationed on my ascendant. So we roll with the punches. Okay, so that is also a challenging part of this lunation. Then we have this very strong sextile between Pluto and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. We've been speaking about the Saturn-Neptune dance that they're doing for a while. We will be speaking for a good while more because they started to come close enough together to really be impacting each other in Pisces. They've both entered Aries. They're both currently retrograding back into Pisces. And in February next year, 2026, they will step into 0 degrees of Aries together. This is hugely profound. Just like I said, 15 degrees of the fixed signs are the world axis points. 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, those are the solstice, when the sun hits those points. Those are solstice equinox points. I mean, they are huge initiatory points, but 0 Aries is the beginning of the entire zodiac. It's in the northern hemisphere where astrology was sort of started and the setup was started. It initiates spring. For us here in the south, it initiates autumn. Either way, beginning of the zodiac. So big deal. And for Saturn and Neptune to be entering there together is pretty profound. They're already there now, though. So we're getting a taste of it. They're not finally there and they aren't entering the 0 at the same time until next Feb. But for now, we're getting a feel of this, like, again, come back to Leo new moon, because of course, this is also forming a very nice trine, these two, to this new moon, okay? A beautiful, strong trine to the new moon. So here we're talking about all the things we said about Leo being sovereign and autonomous. Fire is that. Fire is intense, it is passionate, it is driven, it is hot, it is. I mean, the sun is the ruler of Leo, so he's in his own sign. And the sun has this energy of, I just shine. I'm not trying to irritate you. I'm not trying to bother you. Clouds may cover me, but I'm shining behind the clouds. I just shine and I shine and I shine. I never dim my light. Yes, the earth shifts and you have a day and you have a night, but I keep shining. And that is the essence of sun. So fire has a similar essence. Okay, it is hot, it burns. Yes, sometimes if you don't put fuel in it, it'll burn down. And Aries as fire can be a little bit quick to spark, like a match comes on, and that the flame will fizzle out super quickly if you don't put the match to a candle wick or put the match to a pile of wood. It will go out. So it is a little bit more, because it's a child. It's like a baby, like energy, like super excitable, and then also poof, goes out quickly. Okay, so we've got Saturn, who's going to help to kind of contain that slow burn, slow down the Aries burn. And then we've got Neptune, who is almost like saying, well, we don't have to contain you to one tiny little candle. Let's like burn the fields, because Neptune's so unboundaried. Saturn's going to hate that. Saturn's going to say, this needs to be a controlled burn. And Neptune's going to be like, just trust the process. So anyway, the point is, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked on all my analogies and metaphors that are coming through to me as I do this reading. But the point is that we're already getting a sense of this, and it is very autonomous. You might look at Leo as being like bravery, charging in. And did I say Leo? I meant Aries. And then you might look at Leo as the courage to sustain that, because it's like the baby fire into the middle fire, and then the sort of wisest, oldest, sagest fire would be Sagittarius. So each of the fires will have their own developmental stage. Then we would start with the baby Earth being Taurus, then Virgo, then Capricorn, and so on. So right now we are really looking at how we can learn to be autonomous. Fire wants you to be responsible for you. Fire wants you to be creative, to be dynamic, to be energized, to be powerful, to be fun, to be courageous, and to fight if you need to. Fire is not afraid to burn you if you get too close to it. So boundaries is a good one for fire. So these are really important things to establish, because we have now, of course, got all the outer planets moving. In fact, at the point of this, it is our first really big experience of a new moon with all of the outer planets in their new sign. I want to say gender, but it's not really about gender. So you have yin signs or feminine and yang signs or masculine, and all of the water and earth signs are more yin, and all of the outer planets were in more yin signs. Pluto was in Earth Capricorn, Neptune was in watery Pisces, and Uranus, who's just stepped in, look, he's still at 0 degrees of Gemini, was in earthy Taurus. And now we're looking at double air and fire. And what happens? Air fuels fire, but this is much more dynamic, much more yang, and go and do the thing, change the world. The yin energies, where they've spent a good long while, was more holding space, grounding, figuring out the physical form, clearing a lot of emotional trauma, baggage, and many other things. I'm just giving a snapshot. But now we're going into this dynamism that is pretty damn intense. So you get to be even more responsible for the energy you bring into this world. I mean, you have to be accountable for your energy, and that's fire. And the air is our intellect. It's how we think. It's the new ideas. And it's saying, if you want to expand your mind, if you want these brilliant insights, you better really think about how that impacts other people. The things you do, the things you are, the things you say, the energy, the vibration, not even anything that necessarily comes out of your mouth, the energy that you carry, that is what ripples out into the world. Obviously, and your actions and your words and whatever, but start with me. Fire is me. And this is a very, very good new moon for you to really get a handle on who am I? What do I represent? What parts of myself do I no longer want to cultivate? What parts of myself are not my favorite, but I need to accept them and learn just to not put too much weight into them, to mitigate them on some levels. And what parts of myself do I want to cultivate? Do I want to enhance? Do I want to step into? How can I step into my power in a way that is not hurting, burning somebody else? So this is just, there's so much we could say about this moon. Remember, Jupiter's also in his happy place. He's spending the year in Cancer, and he's also gotten a little further away from the early degrees, which, I mean, that's great for him because he's gotten away from being too hemmed in and inhibited by this conversation, and also by what was I going to say he was upset about? No, I think it's mainly these two. It's mainly these two that he was really getting a little bit squished in with. Yeah, he wasn't loving that. So now that he's moved a little further into the sign, he's at 10 degrees. Now he can start to bring his love. And he really wants you to nourish yourself, nurture yourself, mother yourself, so to speak, in a way that is next level, like up level your self-care. And that doesn't mean getting a pedicure. I mean, it can mean getting a pedicure or a massage, but what is it for you that keeps you at the best vibration and frequency? You need to nurture yourself in order to do that. And this, of course, Uranus and Gemini, we need to stay in our bodies. That is like just the day Uranus moved into Gemini, I'm a channel, and the information that just kept coming to me is stay in body, travel off planet. So it's like if we, because Uranus is higher minds, Uranus is space, Uranus is other realms, star systems, whatever. But if you can't stay anchored and rooted into your body, you can't go to those realms. Maybe you don't want to go to those realms. Then you're golden, but stay in your body anyway. But for those of you who are channelers or somebody who dreams a lot and works in your dreams, or has been having weird spacey experiences that you can't really understand, you're probably having this organic kind of connection to more. I always think he even looks like a little antenna, the glyph, don't you think? So it's like this little antenna that helps us to get to a frequency that is outside of ordinary reality as we've known it, which is what's happening. We're changing. The world is changing. We are shifting dimension. Some of us will stay on the older timeline. Some of us will move into the new timeline. It's not a judgment which timeline you choose. But the fact is everything is changing, and Uranus in Gemini is really going to like up level our awareness of this. So, and dysregulate your nervous system if you don't stay in body. So that is also super duper important, which brings us back to the importance of the fire, the I am, the Leo, the Aries energy. I am, and I need to look after this vessel that I'm wearing for my soul to stay here on earth where I chose to be at this crazy time in history in order to grow, because that's why we're here, the evolution of our souls. Okay. I'm going to stop now. I don't know how long that was, but it was probably too long. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes, shares, follows, subscribes, all of that. And please do send me a message, private message, email if you are looking for a little bit of personalized guidance, because the world is feeling like a crazy place, but actually we are ahead of schedule from a soul perspective. We are doing flippin' great, and I look forward to working with you in the future if you feel called to connect. So thank you for your time.